Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to another episode of the Soul Sessions. I am Soul. Welcome to another episode, and we are featured here on Wrestling Republic. It's time to drop the A's in the comment section because we are here with Alan Angels. Alan, how you doing, pal?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well because you've had quite a hell of a week, I must imagine.
Yeah. It's been pretty busy.
Yeah, I know. Ever since you just change your Twitter profile and just change a few things, and then carnage ensues. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah.
what happened? Well, you must have thought like, what's going on here?
Well, yeah. So, I put the first tweet out. Excuse me. I put the first tweet out that said, looking forward to what's next or whatever it said. Not really like, it wasn't really meant to be like a cryptic message or anything like that. Like everybody kind of thought it was. It was more just like, I genuinely am excited for what's next. It was more like a general statement. I wasn't like trying to allude to anything, but a few people kind of like just random people, not even like wrestling journalists or anything, were just like just fans. They were just saying like, oh, maybe he's leaving AEW. So then I was like, you know what, my contract's up in a few days. I'll see what happens if I just turn my screen black. So I turned my profile picture black, and then everybody started speculating everything, and then it just went into a whirlwind from there until I did a Fightful interview where I announced that my contract is up. And yeah, from there it's just like constantly like messages, and it's been a busy week. But it's great, and I'm super grateful for all of it for sure.
Oh, of course. You must have just got a flood of emotional support from fans as well. Sad to see you go, but obviously wanting you to have a bright future as well and go for what you want to.
Yeah, definitely. The fans have been great. I mean, like all of my fans from like Sammy's vlog and the Dark Order fans and all that, they've all been super supportive for the most part, and I'm very grateful for all of them.
Well, that's great to hear. Well, before we go into AEW, let's start about your tenure before then. What was your initial gut reaction to getting into wrestling in the first place?
So I mean, I've wanted to be a wrestler since I was like 7 or whatever. I watched wrestling. My dad watched wrestling when I was like a little kid. And then I told my preschool teacher to know her role and shut her mouth. And I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling for a while after that. But then one day I was like maybe 7. I was flipping through the channels or whatever, and I just saw wrestling on there. It was like SmackDown. I'm not even sure who it was or anything like that. It just like really drew my attention. I don't remember like I do know that like one of the first episodes I watched was Eddie Guerrero's last match.
Oh wow.
Because I remember me coming up to my dad like the week after or like a few weeks later or whatever and asking him if that wrestler really died. So I know that like one of my first wrestling experiences was watching Eddie Guerrero wrestle, which I always thought was really, really cool. And then, yeah, I mean, like I never really remember wanting to do anything else. Like I wanted to be like an astronaut when I was like in kindergarten or whatever. But like besides that, I don't really remember realistically like wanting to do anything else besides wrestling. Even it's one of those things where as a parent you're probably like, oh, he'll grow out of it, whatever. But I just never did, and I constantly kept up with WWE, and then from there I started watching TNA, and I started watching indie shows, and I started watching New Japan and all that stuff, and it just I never slowed down. I never stopped watching. So yeah.
Always chasing the drive, my friend. Always chasing the drive.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
Before you joined AEW as well, you teamed with Lee Johnson as well in the faction as well. Trigger Warning, I believe it was called. Your team.
Yeah.
Want to talk about your time with Lee on the independent scene as well. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, so we didn't do too much together. We had a few matches, and then the pandemic happened. We were really hoping to like do a lot more, but then it just timing and all that with the pandemic. So. Yeah, I mean, I only wrestled on the indies for maybe like 3.5 years, which is another reason I'm super excited to go on this indie run right now, because I never really got to wrestle on like super big indies. I had a few moments and stuff where I did some really cool things in front of like bigger crowds or whatever, but for the most part, I didn't get to do anything like super big. you know, I did stuff with Southern Honor Wrestling in Georgia that was a big deal at the time. But yeah, before that, like I'd never really gotten to do anything. So, but yeah, teaming with Lee was great. I love Lee. We had a few really fun matches together, and that it all just kind of came together because honestly, I think it might have been QT's idea to put us together and just, you know, have us be a tag team, because we were wrestling at a show kind of affiliated with the Nightmare Factory called GPW. And we just started tagging there, and yeah, so.
Yeah, of course, no, that's great things. You mentioned, you know, before this little indie run you had before, you know, Elite as well. I believe you also wrestled the current Money in the Bank holder for WWE, Austin Theory. You know,
yeah.
How was wrestling?
We actually started training together back in 2016. He started maybe like probably like 4 or 5 months before I did, and yeah, so at the WWA 4 and in Atlanta, Georgia, we started training together. And yeah, he's great. Like we wrestled multiple times, and he's just one of those guys that just like he always knew. You know, he would always talk about like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be in the WWE. I'm gonna be a world champion. All this stuff, and like he just knew. Like you could hear it in his voice. It wasn't even like obviously he's very determined and very passionate about it, but like it wasn't even like that. It was just more like he knew it as a fact. You know what I mean? Like he was, you know, always just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So it's like he always knew from day one.
Mm-hmm. No, he's definitely chasing his dreams, and he's done well for himself. You know, United States champion and then immediately Money in the Bank winner as well. I mean, damn, that's quite a record there myself, I must say.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, good for him, man.
Oh, yeah. So let's move on to AEW. You know, your initial match was against Lance Archer. You know, what was the initial process in getting into AEW? You know, did you meet Tony Khan, or were you brought in, contacted by somebody?
Yeah, no, we just so the pandemic happened, and then they had a show in Jacksonville, I think the first week of the pandemic, and then the second or third week they went to it was in the Nightmare Factory, and they decided to tape a bunch of weeks of TV just to build up, you know, stuff in case they weren't able to film anything else besides that. So, yeah, you know, naturally they needed some guys to come in and fill some spots because, you know, a lot of people couldn't make it because of the pandemic. Like flights were, I think, completely shut down. I don't think anybody was flying anywhere. So unless they could drive to Norcross, Georgia, they, you know, probably couldn't make it. So, you know, like I said, naturally they needed a bunch of people to fill some spots and just fill up TV time. And I was one of those guys. I was a student at the Nightmare Factory. Most of the extras that day were students at the Nightmare Factory. So I went in there and along with, you know, all the other guys there, and that was pretty much it. You just went and looked at the board and saw what you were doing, met up with the guy you were wrestling, and that was that. And yeah, the first match I had was actually the day before against Dustin and QT. And we were like full bodysuit Dark Order guys. Like nobody could tell it was us. We had the mask. We had like an Under Armour long sleeve shirt on and pants and stuff. And so then we wrestled QT and Dustin, and that went really well. And then the next day, that was when I wrestled Lance, and then I also wrestled Kenny that day. And yeah, it was really fun. The Lance match was kind of a last minute thing. They were just like, hey, I actually wrestled Kenny first.
Oh, wow.
And then they said, hey, we need Lance to have a match. And so I changed out of my gear after the Kenny match. I come back to the filming area, and they're like, hey, can you actually put your gear back on? We need you to wrestle Lance. So then I put my gear back on, you know, whatever, wrestled Lance. So, but yeah, it was a fun day. Great experience for sure.
Yeah, damn. I mean, look at you go to wrestle Kenny Omega, the best bout machine, and then immediately going into the Murder Hawk, Lance Archer. That's a workhorse right there, my friend. Talk about your first match with Kenny. I mean, that must have been like like me, like going against Kenny with his legacy and reputation?
Yeah, oh yeah, Kenny's the man. He's like I said, I owe my career to like 3 or 4 people, and he's definitely one of those people. Because without that match, I don't know that Alan Angels would be here today. So I really appreciate him for that match and the second match for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was super nervous going into it. Obviously, like who wouldn't be? I told Fightful that I wrestled. I had the match on the first day, and then I was kind of told that I would probably be wrestling Kenny the second day. So I was just nervous as shit all day and all night, and there were no gyms open or anything. But I really wanted to work out, so like I have a bunch of like dumbbells and stuff in my basement. So I just went. I just worked out with just dumbbells like for hours because I was just so nervous, couldn't sleep or anything like that. And then the match itself went pretty good. As I like to say, there are people that hated it, people that don't hate it, people that loved it. You know what I mean? It's usually one or the other. Everyone has their like strong opinion on that match, but either way, it worked out well for me, and I'm very happy that it happened.
Exactly.
And of course, I have my haters, but it's all good, man. I don't really pay too much attention to all those guys.
Nah, let them be. Focus on the positive, my friend. That's
Yeah, for sure.
What was the initial discussion about you joining the Dark Order in the first place? Was it always something that was planned, or was it just brought up to you and you took the offer?
Yeah, no, it was kind of just brought up to me. I mean, I think it was Tony's idea to have me in there, and then we had the whole thing where Brodie introduced me or whatever in the with the mask. He gave me the mask and all that stuff. Yeah, it was kind of just laid out to me like, hey, do you want to be in the Dark Order with these guys? And yeah, and so it just kind of happened, and we did the whole thing backstage where he handed me the mask, and it was history from there. But I was at that point, it was just kind of like I was happy to be a part of anything. I was happy to just be there at AEW. So of course, anybody's gonna say yes, especially like working with a guy like Brodie. It was just a great opportunity for sure.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And what was it like meeting the other Dark Order members at the time? Was it good introductions? Did everything mix well, or what was it like?
So at the time, the only one that was really there was Preston Vance. I think. I'm trying to think. I believe he was the only one there because Silver and Reynolds, they weren't able to make it to a lot of the tapings because of COVID and stuff. And then Stu and Uno, same. They ended up coming a little earlier than Silver and Reynolds did. But at first, the only one that I interacted with really was Vance, because and I'd known him for years as well because he trained at the Nightmare Factory as well. So yeah, he was the only one that I really knew that was there at first, and then I believe Silver and Reynolds came along, and later Stu and Uno. But yeah, just it was great. All those guys were always super inviting. I never felt like any kind of hostility towards anybody else. Like somebody else joins your faction or whatever, maybe there could be like a little bit of hostility or whatever, but it wasn't. I never felt that. Especially when we started doing like BTE bits and all that stuff, we all really got to know each other and become friends. So, and which kind of helped make the Dark Order in general. I think the fact that we all just like were naturally friends.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I think a lot of it wasn't like forced or anything like that. I think we just, we were all like super willing to work together and, make something good and funny. I think that was a big part of it. If we all went in there with like this competitive edge towards each other, then, we're not focusing on making the Dark Order great and like it could be,
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely. I mean, everyone loves the Dark Order. I honestly don't see why people would hate it. It's absolute fun blast. Your guys are amazing as well.
Thank you.
And someone else who's closely associated with the Dark Order as well is Hangman Page, which you had a match with, who Brodie was at your side for. Want to talk about that match as well? What was it like wrestling Hangman?
Yeah. A lot of people actually forget about that match. I feel like that was my Besides the Kenny match, that was like my first match on Dynamite, and well, actually, I think all those matches were on Dynamite. Now that I think about it. But yeah, no, Hangman's great. Like he's one of the guys that hit me up when I left AEW, wishing me all the best in my future and stuff. So yeah, he's like one of the most genuine, like nice guys in the whole world. And the fact that he was willing to help out the Dark Order and let us have that whole storyline with him and just make the Dark Order mean something in the long run, I feel like was just one of the most like selfless things in wrestling that I've ever seen. He's just like legit one of the nicest guys in the world. He used to be a school teacher. So
Yeah.
he so like of course he's a super nice guy. The match was great from what I remember. Remember he power bombed the shit out of me at the end, but it was a great match. It was really fun. He's the man, and yeah, definitely grateful for that match. And he was another one of those guys that was just really willing to help me out and give back,
No, of course, absolutely. Definitely still my champion in my eyes, no matter what.
yeah, Hangman's the man.
Yeah, he is. Speaking on being elite, obviously Dark Order segments were one of the highlights of the show during the pandemic era, and you made your little base in the little section of Daly's place as well. I was wanting to talk about, some of the highlights making BTE as well in that little Dark Order club room.
Yeah. I mean, like some of our best bits were in that room for sure. We did the one that most people like to talk about, the bit with Sue, where she comes in and like throws the paper or whatever, and that one's great. That one's really funny. But one of my favorite ones that like everybody kind of forgot about was where we had the saloon doors and like Hangman rides 10 and all that stuff. It was like a celebration or something. I don't know. We did so much crazy shit. Like I don't even remember half of it. One day I'm gonna have to go back and watch all of them. But they're so like it was just one of those things where you're just like cracking up, even just talking about putting it, like actually doing it, and then when you're actually doing it, it's so hard to like keep it together. And yeah, I think that like one of the funniest things in all those bits is like when one of us breaks, and we start laughing. I think people genuinely like seeing that. You know what I mean? There were a lot of times where like we would feel like we had to do it over again because like one of us broke and started laughing. But like I said, I think people like that. I think people think it's so funny. I mean, there's a whole compilation on YouTube, I think, of John Silver making Anna break and making her, yeah, because she would always be the one to like start laughing. But yeah, it's a great time. I really miss doing all those bits. We haven't done it. We were kind of doing them. We haven't been doing them as much lately or anything, but yeah, it was so fun. We also, when we were in Daly's place, we had a lot more time to kind of do those and plan them and put them together and all that stuff. Now that we're on the road, everything's a lot more frantic, I guess.
Yeah.
Also at Daly's place, we always like knew where we were gonna film it. We were like, all right, we're gonna go into the Dark Order room and film it. And yeah, but like when you're on the road, like we didn't know where we were gonna film it, so we had to figure that out and then blah blah blah. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I mean the Dark Order room's great. I do really miss it. And yeah, just I miss doing all those bits. They were so fun, so funny, and all those guys are great.
Yeah, definitely. From BT moments, there's a lot of funny moments. Obviously, John showing Anna, Anna Jay abusing the hell out of Stu Grayson.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. And then there's also the Suck It 5 stuff as well. What was the initial origin of that?
I don't know. I feel like the first one was like when me and Alex wasn't there one week or something, I think. And so me and John were the recruitment team. And then I'm trying to recruit somebody, maybe like, I think I'm actually trying to recruit Sammy. And I tell John that I like know all the hip lingo and all that stuff so I can talk to Sammy. And I say something stupid that's like obviously not cool at all. And then Yeah, and then he like yells at me or whatever, and then that's where the gif of a 5 or whatever. He's like, "Shut the fuck up, 5." That's that whole gif. I think that's from that bit, and I think that's where it started. Yeah, because I had the whole long hair gimmick thing going on. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know, man. It's all just kind of runs together, and it's all so stupid, but so funny at the same time.
All good times, mate. It's all good times.
Yeah, yeah.
Another fun moment as well for the Dark Order is coming out with the coffin, doing the coffin dance scene when Cody Rhodes lost his title to Brodie Lee. Talk
Yeah.
about that. Who was thinking like, yeah, let's do the coffin dance coming out?
I honestly have no idea whose idea it was. It might have been Brodie's, or it was probably either Brodie or Cody's. I honestly don't know. It was so ridiculous. And then, we come out, we do the coffin dance, and I'm wearing that stupid tie or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know. I honestly have no idea where any of that came from. But that was another one that's like, there's also like a really funny picture from that where Vance pops up out of the coffin and he's flexing, and I'm behind him just making the dumbest face. So yeah, that was another one of those things that it's just like, it was weird because it was one of those things that like a BTE bit made it on TV. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what it was, right? It was like a BTE bit that like made it onto Dynamite. And that just goes to show like how great like the BTE bits were for us, because it was like, these bits are getting so popular on the internet that like, now we gotta put this on TV because it's just so good, so funny. But yeah, loved it. It was a great time.
Was there any BTE bits that weren't filmed just because the idea wasn't right, or maybe it was too extreme for BTE?
I don't think there was anything like that was too. I mean, there might have been like things we cut out. I don't know. I can't really think right now. I'm sure there was. We did some crazy stuff, and like I'm sure there was like something that I think we definitely like filmed some stuff that we like ended up cutting out of the bit or whatever, or we would just like redo it. No, there wasn't really a limit. I mean, we did so much crazy dumb stuff like that. It was like, yeah, there was no limit for real. Like we would film some stuff and we were like, is this too far? And then we would just say fuck it and put it up, and then people loved it anyways. But there was definitely a lot of times where we were like, man, maybe this is too far and we shouldn't do this. But it was fine. It ended up being fine.
That's it. Just to touch on this briefly, obviously Brodie Lee's passing in late December of 2020. There was a big memorial show. Two questions I want to ask about that. So obviously just how are you feeling going into it? And obviously you were there next to Brodie Jr. -1 ringside as well. I was just wondering, was that a personal choice here just to make sure he was okay?
I mean, it was kind of a thing where we were all wrestling that day, and yeah, Brodie he had the whole spot. Sorry, my dogs are barking. We had the whole spot where he hit MJF with the kendo stick. So I was there for that, and I gave him the kendo stick, and it was so great. It's actually like my most viewed thing on TikTok. That I don't use TikTok, but like I put that on TikTok, got a bunch of views. No, yeah, it was great. And Brodie's like, when he first got there, when he would first like start coming to the shows all the time, he would just come and like be backstage and just start hitting guys with a kendo stick, like just every day. It was just like he would just hit all of us, like come up from behind and just hit us with a kendo stick. That shit hurt so bad, and it was like, oh shit, like I can't tell this kid to stop hitting me with the kendo stick, but and then eventually his mom would like get on to him about it or whatever, and he calmed down. But yeah, that whole day was like so surreal. It really was. And having that moment with Brodie was super special for sure.
No, good. That's good to hear. Then obviously, after that, further down the line, AEW went on the road because, things were opening up. I was just wondering, what was the main difference from being, stuck at Daly's place to finally hitting the road?
I mean, so when we were at Daly's place, a lot of times we were filming like 2 weeks. So we would come there Wednesday and do the live one, and then we would film one Thursday. So then we would have 2 weeks off. So especially at the beginning, it was like every 2 weeks, we're only, a lot of us are only wrestling once every 2 weeks. And I kind of talked to Fightful about this, about like how after, if you're wrestling once every 2 weeks, you're not even really being able to train because, there's no wrestling schools open or anything like that. Like, you get, I don't want to say rusty, but like, you have to get your reps in, especially like in what we do. If you're not like constantly doing it, then one, I feel like your skills deteriorate a little bit, but also, um, you're not getting better. And then you're also like, your body really hurts after taking just like one or two bumps. Um, if you're only doing it once or twice a week, then it's like, your body just really starts to hurt after like, you take just a few bumps, as opposed to like, it sounds weird, but like the more bumps you take and the more often you do it, um, you kind of build up a callus to it, and it doesn't really hurt as much. But if you're just wrestling only once every 2 weeks, then your body starts to hurt a lot more because you're not used to the abuse that our body takes. So that was a big part of it. So then going back on the road, obviously it has its challenges as far as like traveling and all that stuff, where you're on the road every week. Sometimes it feels like you just got home, and then you're there for like one day, and then you got to go again. So obviously there's those challenges, but I really enjoyed being on the road every week. Like I really did. Getting to go to a different town, stay in a different hotel, all that stuff. It's all really cool. And on top of that, like you're wrestling way more, and you're getting to wrestle in front of an actual crowd, as opposed to like in front of Daly's place where you're just wrestling in front of like other workers. So it's much more satisfying, I would say, to wrestle in front of a big crowd of fans as opposed to the workers or whatever. So that's like one thing I'll never forget. Like the first time I wrestled in front of like an actual crowd at AEW, and it was like so like, thinking about it now, it's like I don't want to say it's no big deal, but
Like a
doing
rush.
it doing it every week, you build up like a whatever to it. But the first time I went out there, the first time we like packed out Daly's place, right before we actually went on the road or whatever, was so cool to me. Like to wrestle in front of like actual fans again is just so like, it's so satisfying, because like that's like what wrestling is when you think about it. Like it originated from fucking like just wrestling in front of the crowd. It used to be that like TV was a commercial for live wrestling events. Now it's kind of the opposite, where the TV is the most important part of it. But it started out as just like guys wrestling in front of big crowds, and that's what wrestling is supposed to be. The cameras and all that stuff is just kind of added to it, but actually wrestling in front of the crowd is like what wrestling is. And I feel like that's where we get the most satisfaction. No matter how many people are watching on TV, I feel like the most satisfaction will always come from the live crowd there, no matter if it's 200 people or 20,000 people.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter how many people are there, they're always dedicated and always ready to see who they want to see. One of the craziest crowds, I think, for Dynamite was the match against the Dark Order and Hangman versus the Elite. That match, I love that match in itself. I want to talk about that. What was that feeling going in? Because that crowd was absolutely, off their feet for it.
Yeah. I mean, I actually wasn't in that match, but we did the entrance or whatever, and we all had the purple bandanas, and it was so cool to just like walk out there, and that crowd was so electric. I believe it was in Charlotte, and it was just so crazy to see all the people there. And it was like it was like the third or fourth week on the road back, and it was just so cool. And the match itself was great. And like I love like the 5-on-5 elimination matches. I think those are always so cool and interesting. So, and the way they did it was really good, and it was just a great match in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And then further down the line, I want to touch on this as well. CM Punk was brought into AEW, and I was just wondering, what was the buzz around backstage? Were people like knowing, or were there like a lot of rumors, or you were just told out front he was coming in?
I think we kind of knew. I don't really remember. I feel like a lot of people kind of started speculating, but like even online, like a lot of people already knew, obviously. Like Everybody knew what was coming. I think once they announced that they were running in the United Center for the Rampage, I think that's when everybody on the internet really knew. So as the internet started to know, we all knew, and it was kind of a thing. I don't know, but I mean, I think a lot of people were really excited about it, to have CM Punk back in a wrestling ring for the first time in 7 years. We knew it was going to be good business for AEW in the long run. Um, and it's just one of those things, like, if the business is doing good, then we're doing good. That's kind of how I think a lot of people backstage took it.
I think that's a good way to have it as well.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
that led to All Out as well, which has been considered one of the greatest pay-per-views in recent memory. And there was more people who debuted, Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole as well. I was wondering, how would you compare the locker room environment from, Daily's Place pandemic era to like all these new big stars coming in? What was the main difference you would have thought you see maybe?
It's definitely different. Whereas at Daily's Place, it's the same guys every week for the most part. And we're all, just kind of doing it every week. And then, we get all these new guys coming in, and I personally have never thought of it as a bad thing. I said, I think anything that's good for the business as a whole is good for all the boys. The more money that wrestling draws, the more money that is able to be distributed amongst the boys, so to speak. So, never thought of it as a bad thing. I think all those guys that we're bringing in are great. All the guys that AEW are bringing in are great. Like Bryan Danielson, it's like my favorite of all time. He's like one of those guys where, like, I think, whether he's, doing the entertainment aspect of wrestling or doing the wrestling part of wrestling, he's like so good at it, and he just gets it. And just listening to him talk about wrestling is like, so, like, he's just a smart guy in general. You know what I mean? Getting to wrestling was like a great opportunity. So to say, for anybody on the internet that's saying that, like, oh, they're just bringing in these WWE guys and blah blah blah, like, I don't know. I just think it's like all those guys deserve to be there, and there's, I don't think, and anybody that's mad about it, it's just like, it's not like their fault. You know what I mean?
No, of course.
Yeah, and they're just, it's like I said, it's good for the business overall. And anything that's good for the business overall is good for all the boys. So, yeah.
That's it. That's what we want at the end of the day, I'm sure. Everyone from every side and every company.
Exactly.
One of the big storylines for the Dark Order, obviously, after all, it was the wee Civil War that happened. I was just wondering, what was the initial idea for that storyline? Was that something that was brought to you, or did you recommend it?
I think it's something that we all kind of thought of after Hangman left for a little bit. We kind of needed something to do, and it was just like a good idea, I thought. And personally, that's one of my favorite things that I ever did in AEW. Because for me personally, it gave me a chance to really show everybody that that I have some character or whatever. I got to show a different side of me, like a more aggressive side of me and all that stuff. I had the match with Uno, we had the tag match and all that stuff. And I got to show a little bit of character as opposed to just being on BT every week. And just like character development and stuff like that. I got to take my mask off, which I really wanted to do, just because, nothing against the mask. I actually thought it was a really cool look, but it's just different. It's just not me, I don't think. It's harder to wrestle in for me personally. You always got to worry about moving the mask around, make sure you can see out of the eye holes and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just different. And for me personally, I prefer wrestling without a mask. So anybody online that's asking me to put my mask back on, no. So it was, So, but yeah, the whole Civil War storyline was great, and I loved it. And especially the match with Uno. It was such a like a different vibe. I've never had a crowd like that where we walk out and it wasn't like they really just didn't want to take a side. You know what I mean? Like nobody, the whole time, pretty much, they were chanting, "Please don't fight, please don't fight," which I thought was so crazy. Like, it legit wasn't like a babyface match where they liked both of us. It was legit like they didn't want us to fight at all. Like, they just, it's not that they didn't, I don't want to say they didn't want to see the match, but like they didn't want to see us fight. They wanted us together as a group. So that just goes to show like how much I think the BTE bits really got over, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also speaks to the ability of you guys in the Dark Order as well, being able to connect with people as well, and just shows that people really do care for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And then further on the line, you know, Sammy Guevara, who you're a pair of, you know, you were on his podcast and show on his YouTube channel, would win the TNT Championship, and you would celebrate in the ring with him. What was that moment for you as a friend of Sammy to see him achieve something so great?
Oh man, you know, Sammy, he's legit like one of the nicest guys. I know a lot of people have things they want to say about him or whatever, but I think he's legit like one of the nicest guys to me. He's never done anything wrong to me. He has been nothing but like giving towards me and what I want to do on the vlog, and you know, help me get over as much as I can using his platform, which he definitely doesn't have to do. You know what I mean? But he did, because you know, we're friends. We're legitimately great friends, and yeah. So I was super excited for him, and he's one of those guys that's like been grinding for so long, like working at this every day. Back on the indies, you know, he's wrestling multiple times every week, like really putting in the work, and like he created the vlog on the side too. Like, as a wrestler, like it's so hard to like do this, like just wrestling, but to also like every week make a vlog, film all of it first of all, then edit it, then put it out and do all this stuff. And like, you know, you have to talk to other people about making music for you and making graphics for you. It's a whole thing. And so the fact that he was willing to like grind that hard, and then, you know, it all pays off in the end and he becomes the TNT champion. It was a great moment. And like, I love, there's like the picture of me, Sammy, Fuego, and Marco, like with the TNT, with him holding the TNT title, was like such a cool moment. And that picture is so cool with the confetti coming down and all that. It was great. It was a great moment.
It's really one of the great Dynamite moments, I must say.
Yeah.
And you know, afterwards things would continue on, and then eventually Stu Grayson would leave AEW as well. Did Stu bring it up to you guys before he was making the decision, or was that caught off guard?
Yeah, he kind of talked to us about it, but it was mostly just a him decision. And once he was gone, it was just kind of like, oh well, you know, we love Stu, but you know, that was his decision, and I don't think he's upset about it, you know, at all. He's got his own thing going on, and he's very happy.
No, of course, absolutely. And then eventually you would go as well. And I saw the wee tribute you done at the end of Sammy's vlog as well. You know, that must have been very tough to record that message as well at the end of his vlog, and then eventually go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I just wanted to tell everybody that I was like super thankful for them and all that stuff, and that I was grateful for the vlog and grateful for everybody supporting it. So yeah, I really liked the video, and I'm glad, and you know, the fact that Sammy like put that whole compilation together of me on the vlog was really cool, and like it really made me think of like how much fun I really did have, not only on the vlog but like AEW in general. It was a really cool thing to see, and like I love all those guys. I really do. I meant everything I said in the video. And yeah, it's like, it's so crazy because like you never really think about this when you're like dreaming of being a wrestler as a kid, but like you really do meet like the best friends that you ever have in your life through wrestling. Because, you know, I never would have met any of those guys if I wasn't a wrestler. We're all from different parts. I'm from Georgia, Griff's from North Carolina, Sammy's from Texas, Fuego's from where the fuck Fuego's from. So he's from Alabama. So it's like, would we have ever met each other? Probably not. And the fact that we did because of wrestling is like so cool. So like, you know, I'm just very grateful for it, and very grateful for all those guys and for the vlog in general.
Yeah, of course, no, absolutely as well. And then obviously your Dark Order team as well what was the discussion with them when you finally made that decision? Like, hey, I got to go grow as a wrestler and a person as well, but not within AEW.
Yeah, no, I told them like the last week that I was there, and they were all. I told them I was excited for it. I really, and it's just like, it sucks, but at the end of the day, like, I feel like it's what I need to do, and I think it's like it's for the best. And none of them, obviously, like, they're not upset or anything like that. They're all they all agreed with me for the most part that I think that just that it is exciting for me to do this. So yeah.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And now looking towards the future, you've got some stuff lined up as well. You're actually making your Impact debut on Thursday as well. Talk about that. What was that discussion about coming into Impact? Was that something you've always wanted to do?
Oh yeah, Impact is like, to me, like, so I started watching wrestling as a kid. Obviously, I'm just watching WWE at first, but then eventually, I started watching TNA and the X Division, and the X Division's like the X Division Championship to me was like a huge goal of mine. Like, that's what I always wanted to be. I wanted to be like the X Division champion. So the fact that I'm wrestling for the X Division Championship is so crazy to me. It's something that, like, it's a huge goal of mine, and like the fact that it's my first match on Impact against a guy like Mike Bailey, who is like legit one of the best going today. It's so cool to me. Yeah, the X Division's awesome. It's always been awesome. And my dad worked with like AJ Styles' aunt when I was a kid.
Wow.
So he hooked us up with tickets to Bound for Glory 2007, which was in Atlanta. And it was so cool to like see that. And like AJ Styles is like a huge role model for me. He's like another one of those guys. It's like one of the best ever, in my opinion. And the X Division Championship, something that he really helped put on the map. So again, the fact that I'm wrestling for it this week is fucking awesome.
Yeah, definitely, man. Is there anyone else in Impact that you want to have a match with that catches?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the X Division is in general is stacked right now. I think you got guys like Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, all those guys. Like, they're all just killing it right now in the X Division. So yeah, I'm super hyped to wrestle all those guys for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And looking for the rest of 2022, what is the future looking like for Alan Angels?
I don't really know yet. Like I said, I would love to come back to Impact and have matches with all those guys in the X Division, as well as like guys outside of the X Division. Impact in general is stacked. I got the New Japan Strong show coming up where I'm tagging with Uno, so that's another cool thing. And besides that, I'm just gonna try and do as many like cool indies as I possibly can, and try and really make a mark and prove that I can do this, that I can be a star in the wrestling business.
No, of course, absolutely. And you will be a star, Alan. You're quite a talent.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
And one final thing, I mentioned to my team when I was having a chance to interview yourself, there was a lot of questions, and the one that was brought up the most was, are you still a part of the Dark Order, or are you leaving them temporarily to make yourself known first?
No, I mean, I definitely consider myself still part of the Dark Order. If they want to kick me out, that's one thing. But I mean, like I said, I am tagging with Uno at New Japan Strong, so that's really cool, and I'm glad to do it. And if anybody else, if anybody wants to book me and tag with Stu or with any of the other guys that are doing indies right now, I'm more than happy to. So yeah.
All right, that's it. Well, Alan, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the Soul Sessions. Very much. You've been great to have.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here, man. And I say to all the fans, any more wrestling news, check out WrestlingRepublic.com and drop the A's in the comment section for this episode specifically. Eh? Thank you very much for being here, Alan. And as I've been here, all the best, guys. Peace.
Thank you, Ben. You're the man.
No worries, man.